It says, what is the main theme of our story? And I think the main theme is that you have to push through things because no one's perfect and you can't judge a book by its cover. I agree with Belle that the theme is about you can't judge other people because Augie has trouble with friends and he had a pet die just like most of us.
I agree with Genevieve, but I agree with Jenny, but also I think that people shouldn't really talk bad about him if they don't know him good enough.
I agree with Cadence idea because it's kind of mean to be mean to him just because of his face.
I agree with Belle because adding on to hers, everyone looks at him weird, with a weird way, but doesn't know how nice he is.
I would like to add to Alex's point and say that it's kind of like the bleeding scream thing. They had no idea that it was him, and that's why he loves Halloween, because then no one can see him.
I agree with Juno about the bleeding scream and that if they really knew it was August, then they probably wouldn't talk about him because they knew that it would hurt his feelings when he was around them.
And on page 77, it says that it talks about what Jack said, and I feel like that kind of just made August feel worse inside because he was alone, kind of like that in school.
I agree with Belle again, and when he doesn't have any masks on, everyone it goes they play the flag, they try to stay away from him because they don't want to touch him because.
Yeah, I agree to that theme, but I think another lesson we learn is don't let what you look hold you back from doing something because it might be fun. Because before August went to school, he didn't really want to because of what he looked like. He's been there a few weeks. He's really liked going to school, and people are starting to get used to him.
I agree with.
Yeah, I agree. Because in the first page it says he was kind of normal, that he does normal things, just the people think the way he looks makes him different.
I agree with Belle, because when he was, it talks about when he was younger, he would always the astronaut helmet because he didn't of what he looked like.
I agree with Cadence, but I also think that Augie was kind of judging the school. Been judged before, and he didn't want to go to school because he thought people would tease him for his looks. But actually, he has two good friends now. What do you think, Jaden?
We can always move on to the conflict and stuff. Okay.
This is what is the main conflict of our story? and what moves our story forward, I think it's kind of Augie because he's kind of like giving up, and he doesn't think anyone really cares about him, kind of like that.
There's a lot of conflicts, because Daisy died and Augie's being bullied, and he only has 2 friends.
I agree with Genevieve, and also he got lost in the crowd, and he's trying to find him.
I see what you are saying, but I think that the conflict is like Augie at school and seeing a new face like around because everyone was just staring at him, and so I think that it was like a big difference of having him in the school.
I think that's like the conflict, but I think there are many conflicts in this story because like Daisy dying and all what you guys have said. But I think the main conflict is Augie's, what Ken said.
And another thing I agree with Jamered about is like how he said like about his face, and they also like were just when he came in and everyone like was asking, and from the text it said that like why Julian was asking Jack why he wants to be friends with Augie because of what he looks like.
What do you think, Amber?
I think the main conflict is also Augie because since he's like the main character and he's been like having a lot of because people have been bullying him.
What do you think, Alex?
Well, I agree with Amber because just Augie in school, and I don't know.
I heard from you yet, Javen.
I think the main conflict is about people running from because of his face.
I agree with Javen.
I agree with Javen.
Yeah. Well, importance of the perspective in the story, giving everyone a chance, like not to have like 2 masks on. Jack did, like Kizia, and then in a rude way when he talked about Augie.
And I thought if we're in Augie's perspective, when he's talking about Via, he says, I think that she feels this. But then once we get to Via's perspective, we actually get to hear what they actually think. And I agree with both of you guys. But I also think that perspective, it shows how you don't really know you're doing something. Like the incident with Jack about the costume.
I agree with Genevieve because when you have more perspectives, you get like more information about what you're reading and what's happening.
I agree with Alex.
I think that because the sort of perspective like gives you more point of view of like something happening, and like back on the conflict thing, for different perspectives there are different conflicts. Like Augie thought that like Augie's conflict was like because like the situation when Jack like said that he would kill himself if Augie like if he had Augie's face. Jack didn't really think of that as like something bad but Augie did because he heard it and that really hurt his feelings, but it didn't really hurt Jack's. So it wasn't really a conflict to him.
I agree with Jamered, but I think that when Jack said it, I thought when I first heard what he said from the text, I thought that he didn't really mean it because he was just like friends with Augie, and I thought he was just doing it for Julian and his friends. But then I still saw that it would probably hurt. Well, I read that it still probably would hurt Augie from what.
Why do you think that? Like, why did you like think that right away?
Because Jack he was the first one to actually start being nice to him and hanging out with him before everyone else. Like Charlotte was nice to him. She just didn't. After school started, she didn't really like talk to him as much. She just said hi a couple times in a nice way though. But I still think that Jack he's been always nice to him and stuff.
So you just kind of thought it's so weird that he's friends with her because.
Yeah.
Discussion.
And oh, great job, guys! Awesome. Okay, let's outside circle. Let's celebrate some great things that this inside circle did. Kira?
Wait, is the camera turned off?
Nope.
I think they did a great job, like, with having, like, different opinions about things. Like, they weren't like, oh, yeah, like, that's not right. Like, Kaden, I like how she, kind of said something different than everybody else said. Because when they were talking about the Daisy part, she said, like, the importance like, a little bit differently. I thought that was good because, it's good to have different opinions.
Yes,
And so, like, how they had different opinions.
Yeah, the differing opinions, the differing perspectives is what helps us to have a broader, deeper understanding. Yeah, good.
They also made sure everybody talked. And
Yes.
to do that section, let them have their time and actually say it.
Yes, that was very good. What else did they do great? Okay, you want to mention that too, Mason?
I thought they were good challenging each other's opinions and agreeing.
Yeah, good.
I like that they got off track a little bit. Genevieve was talking about how Daisy, but then she brought it back up later.
Yeah, so that really shows that you're paying attention and engaged in the conversation when you can go to one place, go to a different place and come back in that understanding. Yeah, that's great.
The transitions and the illustrations they did was great.
Yeah, they used textual evidence. Yes, you did an awesome job. What are some things that the outside circle you will want to do, keep in mind from seeing what the inner circle did? Like, here's where we can maybe get an even better conversation.
Did a lot of talking about this first discussion, start to move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so someone can wrap up that one and transition to another. Okay, good. What are some other things? Can you hear everyone?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, the volume was pretty good. I would love for your volume to be even a little bit better, but yeah, you're right, but it was good. Okay. Kane, did you have one?
Well, I think that something is maybe everyone to talk a little more. Like some people didn't get to talk as much.
Okay, so the ones that didn't get as much of an opportunity to challenge themselves to step in. Yeah, good.
Maybe if he was, I did this a lot, just saying people's names instead of saying what they said because I was gonna add to it, but then someone else was going to too.
But I did hear some of them. I agree with the ideas, which is fantastic. That made me go, yay! Jamari, and then we're gonna switch.
I think we could have done better wrapping up what we said because when we were talking about the main theme, we didn't really wrap it up. They just said, I think the main conflict is.
Okay, so yes, synthesizing and summarizing is something that is really important for our understanding. Good. All right, so quickly and quietly switch places.
It's hot.
It is hot. Remember, keep your jets clear of all your questions on the floor. Or you can leave it on.
There we go. Wait, Mason,
Oh, we gotta be really quick because the bell will ring. Not that we have to leave, remember, but actually, I'm gonna let the bell be be the end of our discussion. Okay. All right. So the outside circle, remember you're noting good discussion skills that you see going on and content ideas that you find interesting. Okay, and Mason, if you can scoot out a little bit. All right, you may begin.
What is the main theme of our story? I think the main theme of our story was don't judge a book by its cover, because everyone kept looking at Augie weird. But then on page 142, Jack said, second of all, he's actually a really cool dude. So that showed that once Jack got to know him, he was really nice.
I agree with Mason because in the book, some people, they were just judging him by what he looks like. But then once others gave him a chance, they got to know him and they liked him.
I agree with Mason's idea because I think of Augie's face as kind of like the cover. And like, because once people got to know him more, he realized he was really nice and like didn't care what he looked like.
I would like to add to Mason's and Nicole's and Jade's point because like they don't judge a book by a cover. Like that seems like Augie a lot. Like people might be making fun of him because he looks different, but he's not actually different. He's still a person and he still like has a mind like everyone else. He just might look a little differently. Like might look a little different than everybody else.
I agree with Kira because Augie is just like everyone else. He was just born differently in a way. And he's still special and he's still human and he deserves to be treated like equally like everyone else is.
I agree with that statement because Charlotte says she sat at the table the first day because she felt bad for him, but then she started sitting by him more because she actually really liked him.
What do you think, Colton?
Well, I agree with Mason because like he did sit by her, but then Mr. Tushman, like he figured out that they told him to be friends with him, but then actually a couple of them just were actually wanting to be friends.
What do you think, Alexis?
I felt like what everybody felt like we were reading about the conflict. But I thought the conflict was kind of something different. I thought you can't always wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes you have to take a chance and jump. Because Augie, he took a chance to go to public school and he felt like he was going to be humiliated, but he wasn't.
I really like that, like take a chance and stuff. Like, I really, really agree. Like that, I think that's great. What Alexis is saying, like you don't need to like judge a book by their cover. Like give them a chance and stuff. I think that's really great. Something to do. Like something really great. What do you think, Chris?
I think the theme is no matter what you look like, people have to know you. How you actually are. It's very important to know who a person is before you judge them. Just don't judge people, period.
I think the main conflict is like Daisy dying was really sad for the whole family, and it's not just for Augie because everybody loved Daisy, and that kind of just made the story like jump.
I agree with that statement, but I see it in another way. I think the main conflict is Augie going to school. Because by him going to school, he got made fun of, and everything started just going way different than it would have if he just went to homeschool.
I agree with Mason, but then at the same time, he should go to homeschool because someday he's going to be living on his own and he's just going to be outside and stuff, and there's going to be people making fun of him, and if he just stays homeschooled all his life, it's not really going to help.
I agree with Nicole, but I interpreted things a little bit differently. What I think is
that Daisy was August's favorite dog, and like when he came home from like the hospital from a surgery, or he was having a bad day, or coming home from school, then Daisy would always make him feel better, or just kind of like to snuggle with him and stuff, and just kind of lick his face, and he like it made August feel good, like when Daisy was there. That was like his favorite dog.
The main conflict, I think the main conflict is Augie's life with his face is hard. Julian says, "What's the deal with your face? That's just rude." And Jack, without realizing it, said, "I'd kill myself with that face." And then people looks at August. All of that is just rude, and I can understand it's hard.
I agree with Mason, but kind of disagree with what Colton said. But I think that the main conflict is him going to school, and that Julian is not being very nice. And I think that for him, going to school is making him stronger and more brave to do other things in life.
I agree with what Kira said because there's proof of that. Because when Augie was like trying to talk to, I think it was like Via and his mom, they ended up getting into an argument, and he ran upstairs and hid under blankets, and eventually was like pretending that like Daisy was laying with him, and that's how he fell asleep. Going back, like I agree with Nicole and Mason because like Daisy was hard for him, but like that was one of the really hard things. But then going to Mason, it was really like also really hard for him to go to school and meet new people, but just have people like kind of push on him a little bit.
What do you think, Alexis?
I agree with Mason's conflicts, but I felt like he would have never went to public school if his family wasn't there to like help him through it and like push him.
What is the importance of perspective in a story? I think the importance of perspective is so that you can see the story from lots of people. And that seeing the perspectives helped me understand how people were feeling. I agree with Mason because in the story, if it didn't have other people's perspective, then it kind of would have left you wondering how other people felt if like they didn't explain it for themselves.
I agree with Mason and Jay because like if we didn't change perspectives, we wouldn't really get to know like Justin and Via and the way they're seeing it. Because if we just saw it in Augie's perspective, it would have been like a whole different story. I think a little bit differently. I think that I agree with them, like what they're saying, but I also think is they don't think about what other people think about you and don't care what other people think about you. I think it's great when you have people judging you because it kind of builds you up to be a better person and to like not worry about what other people think, because then you wouldn't think like, oh, what did this person think? Because I think sometimes you need that to kind of make you into a stronger, more confident person. And in the book, when people give Augie a weird look, like August just kind of ignores them. Like, I don't really care what they think. I know, and like that he says like he knows that he's like not different, like he looks different, but he's just a same kid. He's just like everyone else. And the astronaut helmet, he was just happy. He didn't care if people were like, oh, why are you wearing an astronaut helmet? Like, wouldn't that be hot? Or like, I don't know, like, why would you be wearing that outside? Like, why do you wear it all the time?
I agree, but like, just going to the public, like, kind of like what Miss Hartwig said a couple days ago, that like, she said like, him as a little kid, most people think, oh, that's kind of like cute or something.
I agree with Kira's perspective, but like going back to what Miss Hartwig always says, like the things that you go through always builds up your character. And the things that Augie has gone through builds up his character by like making him stronger, making him feel like he is ready for something.
Wonderful. You guys did fantastic. Outside circle, what are some good things that they did? Kids?
They had, like, everyone did, like, good on this, but they had, like, really good evidence of what each thing was telling about.
Yeah, use good textual evidence.
They didn't really like stop for a long period of time, so you could really understand what they're talking about.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah.
They were broken down and everybody was really relating together.
They were really relating to the book, yeah. Yeah, very good. Mary?
They were like they didn't like disagree like that's wrong.
Okay, so they weren't disrespectful, they were respectful in their disagreement and their challenging one another's ideas. Yeah, very good.
They use a lot of different transitions, like, when Kayla said circle, I felt like we just said, I agree a lot.
Okay. Yeah, your use of our various discussion connectors was really strong. That's fabulous. Amber?
They used a good volume.
I didn't hear you.
They used a good volume.
Volume, yeah, good.
They used real world links, like they said, like things connected to the video.
Yeah, to the class, not just the text, because that's always a good thing to do. Obviously, you want to use the main text, but related text, real world situations, historical things, personal experiences, yeah, that all supports your opinion and helps us grow our understanding. Yeah.
They was how they said that no
Yeah, and building on other ideas does build up our confidence in the value of our thoughts, and that's what this is all about.
They're all, like, paying attention to each other.
Yeah. Very good. Alex?
They talked about more than one topic. They had a lot of topics.
Yeah. Very good. Jamari?
And they included everyone.
Yes, everyone was included. Awesome. What are some things that for our next Socratic discussion, now not just this group, but all groups that we will want to work on to improve for next time? Nicole?
To not be afraid to like start a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Mason?
To use more of, I agree with that idea or that statement.
Mm-hmm. And to even say what idea it is versus that idea. The idea that the conflict is, okay, good, Kara?
Wait, I just forgot. Oh wait, like you don't just like want to like. Wait. Oh yeah, so you don't want to just like say, oh yeah, I agree with. It's like what Mason kind of said. Like you want to still like say other things. Like I was trying to like say I interpreted, but like also don't be afraid to give good feedback on people.
Yes.
Like it's okay to like say, oh yes, Jade, I really like that idea. I think that's really good. Like that's
Affirming
great.
people. Yeah, because that helps the attitude of the conversation, and it also spurs on more not only positivity but more creative ideas as well. Yeah. Well,
I wish we used more like book text and like real world situations and stuff.
okay, so always using more is more evidence is good. Yeah. Katie?
Maybe like mainly instead of like having to say like, what do you think to the person? Maybe the person like they try
Challenge themselves.
to jump.
Yes, okay, but you guys did a good job of inviting others in. And especially, it's not only when you know, ooh, this person hasn't spoken, but when you know, I know that person has a really good thing to say because I've heard them talk about it maybe, or you just know kind of the way they think, and they haven't shared on that particular item yet, you can invite them in. Yeah, good. And for you to challenge yourself to get out there and share your comments and your thoughts because they are valuable. Sure.
One last thing is like instead of just saying like, oh, what do you think? Like what Kane's kind of said is you could say, oh, what do you think about this idea? Like, do you think like Daisy like is the main conflict, or do you think that's Augie going to school, or instead of just saying like,
oh, what do you think? Just kind of maybe challenge them again a little bit.
In a more specific way, and that's one thing I was just gonna say. We can give someone a little hand up if we say, do you agree with the idea that the main conflict is? And then that's one step closer to, it's just a little bit easier to invite them in that way. Yeah, so good, guys. I'm so proud of you. What we're gonna do now is turn your rubrics over, and I want you to put a great big check on the ones that you feel that you did in this conversation, okay? Great job.